Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.
Hello and welcome back to the first One United podcast episode of 2020. Maybe a new year, but it's the same old mug sat to my right. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. And it's 2021, I think.
Oh, you know what I mean. Right,
Yeah,
started off well. Yeah, I was doing well until I just said that. So we'll move on. But we'll introduce you to our guest today. We're joined by Brad Cox. Now, Brad is the Manchester United correspondent for VAVEL UK. He's, access all areas sort of man at the minute, aren't you, Brad? So how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Thank you very much. Hope everyone had a good New Year.
Yeah, it did. Hopefully you did as well. So we'll get straight into things. So obviously it's not every day we manage to get hold of a bloke who's not only been to games behind closed doors at United, but also spoke to the manager himself. So we wanted to start the podcast by asking sort of what these games are like behind sort of closed doors. So how did you get into the position to be attending these games that are so hard for normal people to get into?
Well, I think one of the things was getting involved with VAVEL early on, getting involved, writing consistently, proving to the editorial team that the work was good enough and of a decent quality, and to get the opportunity to report from Old Trafford is obviously a very privileged one, especially behind closed doors, even more privileged. But I think one of the biggest things is kind of just making sure that you're in and around the ground a lot, whether that be virtually or in person. When you get that opportunity, you got to really take it with two hands, really. Speak to as many journalists as possible whilst you're there. Start to get, it might sound a bit cringy, but start to get a few journalist friends, and make a little bubble. Get to know the correspondents from BBC, PA Sport, The Telegraph, all those sort of people, and just get your name known. I think that's one of the biggest things. And being consistency online with Twitter, really directing and channeling your voice towards a certain audience is incredibly important. I think people need to know why they're coming to your Twitter account. You need to know why they're coming to your Twitter account. Are they coming for Manchester United news? Are they coming for just football news? And what sort of things do they want to actually be looking at? And what I think I've learned over the past few months has been people like to read things that they want to read, if that kind of makes sense. You got to channel a bit of discussion that's going to either provoke or advocate people to read. And the biggest case of that recently has been the OLE in, OLE out discussion. And just teeing up articles like Solskjaer, does he deserve? Is he finally going to get the credit he deserves? I've noticed quite a few of those tweets of mine have done decent. So I think that's one of the biggest things is channel your audience to your page for a reason.
Definitely. We've got a really quick comment out before we move on. It's from John. Nice to join us, John. Not heard a Henry rant since last year. Sort me out. I just got to wait for that first loss of the year, and we'll be right back to it. But Brad, we'll move on. Obviously, I think I'm right in saying you're originally from America, aren't you?
Yeah. So I was born in Cheshire, but moved to the States when I was 13. So ended up living there for 5 or 6 years, which is kind of where I found the passion to report on, as it was called, soccer games over there.
So before coming back to England then, what work had you put in place to become sort of, I think it's fair to say you're a pretty successful journalist for your age anyway. So what work were you putting in behind the scenes there to get yourself into this position?
Well, as a youngster, I think I was about 16 when I started taking a radio course at my high school in America. We were very, very blessed to have a high school radio station built inside of the school. And I hosted two shows on a Tuesday night and Wednesday night. The Tuesday night was a simple music one at 8 o'clock, just playing music for the local listeners, taking song requests and all that good stuff. And then on the Wednesday night, I hosted a football show, it was everything football, basically, just rounding up everything for the American audience, and got nominated for 2 national radio awards. Unfortunately, didn't come home with the silverware, came up short, a bit like Solskjaer in recent months. But yeah, it was great to be nominated, and I think what I learned from that was that I hadn't made it. In an essence, I failed. I didn't win those national awards, but it was just great to be nominated, and I think that kept me hungry.
Definitely. So we'll move on to a match day then, because I imagine that's why a lot of people are listening. You've obviously been to a lot of games since lockdown with no fans in. So, just from the beginning, what's a general sort of match day itinerary for you then, from getting to the ground to leaving?
Well, it's a lot different compared to with fans, obviously. When you've got 75,000 fans pulling up to Old Trafford, you probably need to get there a bit earlier than I have been doing. But in a COVID time, in a behind closed doors game, you get to the stadium about 6:30 for an 8 o'clock kickoff, so about an hour and a half before. You've already been sent all the parking information, all the COVID questionnaires and surveys and all that sort of thing to ensure that you've not got any symptoms. You give them your name, your registration plate, and they escort you to your parking spot, which has social distancing measures in place. And then you end up going to the ticket office, which normally you wouldn't go to the ticket office because there'd be thousands of fans going there to pick up their tickets, so you'd end up going somewhere else. But you end up getting there, you go and get your pass. You show them your ID, they send you through all the good stuff, bag checks, plenty of bag checks. I've never seen so many checks at a football game, especially at Old Trafford. I mean, I think I have it checked 4 or 5 times before you're even close to the ground. So sniffer dogs all around your car as you pull up, so very safe, which is all good. And then you get your pass, you head through, and then I was about to say last night, but 2 nights ago, obviously with the Villa game, I was a bit earlier than usual, and I don't know. You guys know where the players come into the tunnel at Old Trafford, like outside of the ground. I think it's on just next to the Stretford end side.
Yeah.
The buses park a lot closer now because there's no fans in the way. So in the Old Trafford, there's by the Stretford end, there's those big tunnels, isn't there? And I had to wait there and wait for the players to go through, which is quite cool, to be fair, because they've got a lot more checks than us. They've got like red passports. I think they must be player passports or COVID passports or something with barcode scanners, and which is where they check in before they're allowed into the game. And you get your temperature check and everything, and then pretty much good to go. Good to find your seat, and then it's all about trying to figure out the lineup, figure out who's going to start where, and that's been difficult as of late with the amount of changes Solskjaer's made. But yeah, and then you wait for the game.
Well, we'll move on to the actual game itself then. Obviously, there's no fans, and with the television coverage, there's a lot of fan noise there, so you don't get to hear much of what's going on the pitch. So what's it actually like being in the stadium? Is there any sort of standout leaders that are more vocal than others? Is there sort of an in-depth tactical discussion from the sidelines that you can hear? What's sort of different now without fans that makes it more exciting for you to be at a game?
You really start to learn who the leaders are in the team. I've seen a lot of slander towards Harry Maguire since the last 6 to 8 months and the lack of leadership. But when you're at the game, that is just completely false. He is leading that team. He is a true captain. I've seen calls for Bruno to be the captain, and Bruno Fernandes would be a fantastic captain for Manchester United. But I always feel like a captain should be at the back, whether it be a goalkeeper or centre-back. They can see the whole pitch. They can see everyone. And Maguire is definitely one of the loudest, constantly egging the team on, cheering them on, always being the enthusiastic man at the back. But Bruno's definitely second. Fernandes is definitely second. And as for tactics, you can't really hear them because you are quite far away, and they don't need to shout because obviously there's no fan noise. But the nice thing is the substitutions, they're a lot closer to you because obviously they sit in the stands, so you can kind of see them getting ready or like looking at Solskjaer, like, am I coming on, sort of thing. But that's one of the biggest differences is noticing the players on the pitch, and you don't actually notice how many times they are fuming with the referees every single decision. I mean, throw-ins are a bigger one than I've ever heard of. When the throw-in doesn't go their way. I mean, I heard on Twitter that a lot of people heard Jack Grealish swearing on the Villa game 2 nights ago, but Bruno was just as bad.
You can imagine, can't you? So after the game's finished, then obviously the sort of the title of this episode is about interviewing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because you do get access to those press conferences, do you? Don't you? Sorry. So sort of what's the protocol after a game then? Are you sort of sent a link to a Zoom call, or and then sort of prior to lockdown, had you been in a face-to-face interview with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
No, so I've only managed to be in virtual ones with Ollie. And they basically send out the Zoom. Well, each team does it differently. Sometimes you'll get a Zoom code at half time for you to download and get ready. But I think United, as of late, have been doing it earlier. And with this fixture congestion, it's actually been quite good having the post-match press conference and then the pre-match press conference before the next game in the same one. And then they just embargo the tweets and the quotes for like a couple of days. And I actually prefer that, because then you don't have to another day go into a different call. But the way it works is you all just join. Karen Shotbolt, she's the communications manager for United. She'll let you in the call if you're on the list, sort of thing, because if you've got the link but you're not on the list, then she's not going to let you in, because that's just to prevent people from spamming the link everywhere, because then God knows who'd join. Yeah, and then questions go out to Sky first, Sky Sports. James Cooper gets the first couple minutes with Ollie for the TV rights and the broadcasting, and then it's handed out to the written media.
So do you find, because obviously I've been it's in no way comparable, but I've been in a Derby press conference where you struggle to get a word in edgeways with all the journalists. Is that much different at United, or have you been quite successful in the amount of questions you've been able to ask?
Yeah, I've spoken to Ollie quite a few times now, and it's quite good because they use the raise hand function in Zoom. So you press a button and it comes up with that little emoji in like the corner, like right there, and then she'll just kind of like pick on you and say, "Yep, your turn to ask a question," sort of thing. And I think it definitely does depend on your relationship with the club on how many questions you are allowed to ask. I've only managed to get the one question in per press conference, whereas, the likes of James Cooper for Sky Sports gets 2 or 3, maybe 4 sometimes. But yeah, that's how it tends to work. And I think mainly most of the time, there's 4 or 5 people who have their hands raised from the beginning. And then, say Solskjaer mentions something that's interesting and someone wants to build upon that, you put your hand back up and then ask again. But yeah, that's basically how it works. It's a bit different to the Derby one that you've been in.
Brad, do you feel an obligation to write good things about United to get more privileges in the sense of getting, like, asking questions and stuff? Do you feel there's a pressure to write better things, more positive things about the club, rather than saying, if we're in a bad run of form, saying, right, this is not working? Do you feel like an obligation to write good things about them so you get more chances?
I don't think there's an obligation there to kind of sugarcoat an issue. I don't think you need to do that, because they'll know it's coming. At Manchester United, they're expected to do well, and when they aren't doing well, there will be hatred online. What I cannot do is spread hatred. Obviously, yeah. I'm not gonna single out a player in an article demanding for him to leave or demanding Solskjaer to drop him, because that's just not right. Because there's 11 players on a pitch. At the end of the day, the team are they're responsible for the results. I don't think you have to write necessarily nice about them. I think you can criticize when they are due criticism. But most of the time, the better stories are the nice ones, where you talk about a player's influence, like the Eric Bailly stories. I mean, How many times have you heard Eric by his name in the past 3 days? I've never heard his name so much.
Fair enough. Well, just one last thing on Solskjaer then before we move on a little bit. With press conferences, obviously he's got to portray himself as a figure for the club, but do you think we don't see the full Solskjaer in press conferences and stuff like that? And do you think Solskjaer gives off any sort of vibe in a press conference that doesn't really translate to TV in any way?
I think the press conferences that I see, the ones that aren't broadcasted to the outer world, are similar to the ones that he puts on on the Sky cameras and the BT cameras. I think very similar. Nice guy, motive, always cheering on the team. But I do think behind closed doors, he is I feel like there is a bit of Fergie hairdryer system in him, especially after the one, I think it was the Etihad last year where he was giving it Jesse Lingard some abuse. I think that is seen a lot more behind closed doors, and which is probably how it should be. I think Jose Mourinho has thrown players under the bus before in public, and ended his career with that specific club, like it did at Manchester United. I mean, he threw Pogba under the bus, threw Martial under the bus, and it didn't end well for him. And you see Martial now. He enjoyed his best season last season with 23 goals, top goal scorer for the club. So I think that's the way Solskjaer wants to handle it. Everything's internal, a very tight-knit group, which is, if we remember, which is what Fergie did. He never threw players under the bus in public. But there was how many stories of that hairdryer? I think you only think about Fergie and the hairdryer so much because he was at the club 26 and a half years, which is, he had plenty of players to give the hairdryer, which is why it's so famous. Solskjaer's only 2 years in, and we've only really seen the Lingard one in person. So, I mean, if he was there for 26 and a half years, I think we'd see quite a few more.
Definitely. Now, we'll just move on then. Obviously, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not the only famous manager you've interviewed, whether it be press conference or face-to-face or whatever. So do you want to just sort of run us through the big names that you've managed to speak to so far?
Yeah. So I've spoken. Well, I'll start with the first one. Really, the first one was when I was 16. I was in New York, and I was speaking to then manager of New York City FC, which was Dominic Torrent, and he was also Pep's right-hand man for about 2 or 3 seasons. Before he decided to take on the head coach role at New York, and I remember just shaking, and that was my first real professional person I've spoken to in the football industry, and I was just sat there probably about, I don't know, it was about 3 or 4 feet away, asking him a question. They were 1-0 down at half time, and I was like, right, I need to ask him something quite nice here, just to make myself feel okay. Calm myself. And I remember just listening back to it thinking, oh, I actually kept some composure there. But in my head, I was like, oh my God, that question was dreadful. What am I doing? I was all over the shop. I was shaking, everything like that. And those shaky moments do come back. I mean, I had a minute and a half with Andrea Pirlo when it was his time at New York City FC as well. It was a bit more difficult with Pirlo because his English wasn't amazing, so I had to repeat a few questions. And when you're already nervous and already shaking, you don't want to repeat questions to a World Cup winner, and obviously now Juventus manager, so pretty high profile. Jose was another one. Spoken to him a couple of times now, Jose Mourinho. First time I spoke to him, I kind of went with the same approach, just ask him a nice question to make myself feel okay, but also you want to establish a connection with the manager himself. Make sure he remembers your face and he thinks, oh yeah, last time he asked a nice question. I wonder why he should be all right this time. Do you know what I mean? But the one reaction I got out of Jose, which is quite funny actually, was before the 6-1 back in October, was it? September, October? And I asked him in his pre-match press conference. Obviously, he was the Manchester United manager, and Solskjaer got a win against him. I think it was his third game in charge of Spurs or something like that. When United won 2-1 at home, and then the first game back from lockdown, it was that battle again, and it was a draw. So he was yet to get a win against his former club, United, and I just asked him a simple question, like maybe I phrased it a bit tough, but I just asked him, do you see yourself getting revenge on United this Sunday or something like that? And he was like, why would it be revenge? What is revenge? He was like, what is revenge in football? I was like, ooh, okay. He's not taking this well. I was like, 3 points. That would be revenge because they beat you last year. That's what I kind of said. And he's just like, no, revenge is the wrong word. I would not say revenge. I want to do well, of course, but no, not revenge. I have many friends in Manchester. Why would it be revenge? And I was like, all right, Jose, like, I think I pressed a button there. But no, it was all right because, like I said before, I already spoke to him previously at the Sheffield United game, like a couple of months before. I wouldn't launch myself into that sort of situation on the first question. You gotta ease yourself into it.
Definitely. Now, has there been any others before we sort of move
on? Carlo Ancelotti's a great guy. Really nice guy. Everton. Pretty easy to talk to, I'd say. Don't really have any stories about him. Chris Wilder, nice guy as well. Well, that was when they were doing really well, so might be a bit different now. Who else is there? Nuno Espirito Santo. Very, very dull. Those press conferences are tough. I mean, I don't know how some journalists stick with him. He just doesn't give you anything. Just one-word answers all the time. So I think one of the funny ones was he was asking about how Jimenez played and how important he is. He just literally responded with yes, and then we're done. Like absolutely nothing from him. But yeah, that's about it, I think.
Well, before we move on to talking about United, because I imagine that's why a lot of people are here as well, we just for any sort of journalists watching that haven't experienced this game, going to a game, etc. So at every United game you go to, sort of whether it's for VAVEL or for whatever, what is expected of you to produce each game?
Well, I think the first thing to be expected of is making sure that you are providing information with facts, not opinion from one game. You need to, of course, you can throw some opinion into it afterwards, and you know, in a warm down piece, for example, or an opinionated piece on a column on a Sunday afternoon sort of thing. But whilst you're at the game, report facts, what's going on, and then on your Twitter, put your opinion. Put your opinion during the game. Say it's not quite working in this formation. Pogba's not giving Luke Shaw enough help on the left wing, that sort of thing, which was happening a lot in the Villa game. I think we'll discuss that later, or whatever. But yeah, I think that's one of the aspects of it. But then the other one is making sure that your report is ready on the final whistle. I was at Man United versus Southampton in the summer when Obafemi scored that 96th minute equaliser, and that was just a nightmare. I mean, I've written about United's 3 points, closing in on top four, and all of a sudden they're in jeopardy. That's in jeopardy now, and nearly didn't get top four because of that result. So in those moments, it's a bit frantic, you know. When it's 96th minute goal that changes the course of the game, you've got to give yourself time. You need to take a breather, take it all in. You know, jot down some notes on that goal and then try and get it published within 10 minutes or so. And I think that night I was the first person to get a report up with the included like updated scoreline and updated story. I was the first one to get that published. And I'm not going to name names, but I saw a journalist and an outlet get the score wrong in their report. They left it at 2-1 United. So, you know, there are pressures on those sort of moments, but that's how you learn.
Just goes to show, doesn't it? It's not just sitting and watching football, is it? But we'll move on then. Obviously, we mentioned the Villa game. We'll move on to United in general. So you were obviously there at the Villa game. It was a huge win, 2-1, hung on at the end. First of all, from inside the ground, what was the game like in your opinion?
Well, I thought it was an excellent game. I think, but for both Man United and Aston Villa, I thought it was an excellent game. Solskjaer has been criticised of his side starting way too slowly in the past, but it has changed recently. I think the last game United went behind was that Sheffield United game, but the likes of the Leeds games and the Villa game, you know, taking an early lead, it's been good for them. But I think one of the big changes in this game was that United held on to a lead for once, whereas in past seasons you'd almost almost expect Villa to get that equaliser maybe a season ago or 2 seasons ago under Mourinho, where Mourinho would get a goal and then kind of shut up shop, which is what he did against Crystal Palace with Tottenham 2 weeks ago, and then they came back. So with United, I think a lot of people have been discussing about a mentality change. I think this is the biggest example of a mentality change, and we'll really know if there actually has been a change of mentality when they play Manchester City on Wednesday night, 6th of January, isn't it, in the Carabao Cup semi-final, because losing 3 consecutive semi-finals is poor for any manager. I mean, Klopp always got a lot of abuse for his Champions League final losses with Dortmund, with Liverpool, but he got it right in the end. And I don't think that was a mentality change from the players. I think that was Klopp making sure he knew himself, right, it's time to win something. And Solskjaer has to have that mentality now. He has to be saying, look, I've been in the job 2 years. Coming up to the end of this season will be 2.5 years, nearly 3 seasons now. And that's when you can start to judge a manager on what sort of performance he's actually been putting in. But back to the Aston Villa game, I think it was excellent the way they started. I think the highlight was Aaron Wan-Bissaka for myself. Obviously, Eric Bailly will steal the headlines for his performance, and rightfully so. But Aaron Wan-Bissaka was excellent on that right wing and that right flank, because it's the first time we've actually seen him going forward. And whether it's these rumours getting to his head about Max Aarons and right backs coming in, I think it's been good for him to kind of have a little bit of pressure, because at the minute there's no other right back that's challenging it. And we've seen that with Luke Shaw and Alex Tellez. Tellez has come in, proven to Luke Shaw that he can whip it across better than Luke Shaw, and now Luke Shaw can whip in crosses just as well as Alex Tellez. So competition for places, it's all very, very important for a side that wants to be successful.
Absolutely. Sorry, turn my mic off then. Henry, we'll come to you just to make sure you're still awake.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brad mentioned Wan-Bissaka as his key man against Villa. So I'll ask you sort of brief thoughts on the game, and then who did you think really stood out? Because I think collectively, no one really put in a poor performance at all. So who was your key man for that game?
Well, this United side's changed completely from I think it was the Leipzig game that did it. Genuinely, because that game we went to Germany to sharp shop, didn't work, and at the end of the day conceded too many goals. So I think our best form of defence is almost to attack, and having Bailly next to Maguire was perfect, because you've got pace and you've got power in 2 centre halves, and especially Maguire, you've got a ball playing centre half, and then you've got one that's a bit of a nut job, which is what Bailly is essentially. So I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was excellent. Wan-Bissaka again was good. I know I've been critical of him, but I think, to be fair, at times I've had every right to. His performances have been poor up until now, and maybe Brad's right. It is speculation that's got to him. He needs competition, because if he doesn't have that, Brandon Williams, to me, not really competition. I think he needs to go out on loan personally. I don't think he's ready for the first team on a regular basis. So either bring Delo back or go and get another right back. But he was, really good. And, to be fair, the one player that I thought was a little bit below par, and I know Gary Neville mentioned it on commentary as well, but McTominay was a little bit off, and I couldn't understand what was going on quite. I don't know what it was. It was a bit kind of... He's usually one touch. Ping against Leeds, it was fantastic, but it was 2 and 3 touches and kind of a bit slow, and so he was the only player that was poor, but the rest of them were pretty fantastic. And Martial was now scoring goals in the box, not running at people, getting in the right areas. So maybe Cavani's having that right influence.
You'd like to hope so, anyway. So this win, as much as rival fans try to deny it, this win does put us joint top of the league, which is a position following that 6-1 hammering at Spurs, following the 1-0 loss to Arsenal. United fans never thought we'd be in this position, especially at Christmas, so soon after, So, Brad, I'll ask you this question. Are we title contenders yet?
No, Manchester United are not title contenders as of this point. You mentioned it. Lost to Arsenal, lost to Tottenham heavily, drew to Chelsea, drew to City, yet to beat a top 6 side. Obviously, the blockbuster January 17th against Liverpool will prove all. I think you can really start to get an understanding of whether Manchester United are real title contenders on January 17th. But, you can only beat what's put out in front of you. And United haven't had any top six competitors recently. But I think to be title contenders, you've got to be beating those who might be contending with you. I know Chelsea aren't up there at the minute, but they were at the time that United played them. And maybe a point was good at the time because United fans weren't expecting or even considering a title race back then. You were still looking at top 4 and you're thinking, a point, yeah, that'll be all right. It might just get us top 4 with that sort of head-to-head battle. But Solskjaer said it plenty of times. He said, you've got plenty of chances to lose a title race in the opening 10 games, but you won't properly know if you're in one until the 30th game. And even then, if it 3 or 4 teams are still, let's say 6 points between 3 or 4 teams with 30 games played, not many times it happens that way. But this year it could. It's one of those crazy seasons. It really could get to 3 or 4 teams that are within 6 points at the 30-game mark. Even then, there's 8 games to be played, which is 24 points. That's a lot of points to be won or lost. You can end up dropping from 1st to 4th with those amount of points. But then, even still, will you classify United as title contenders if they beat Liverpool at Anfield? I'm not too sure because it's not a full Liverpool side yet. I mean, Van Dijk, he could be back in March, and then he's got 2 months left, and then they're at full strength, you would say, maybe with Joe Gomez back as well. But I think that's a really tough one to judge on whether or not this United side can actually go places. You'd like to see Manchester United be active in this January transfer window, but the fact is that they just won't. They won't be as active as fans will want Solskjaer to be, because fans always expect more signings than the club actually does.
Definitely. Well, I'll ask you the same question in brief, Henry. I think it goes without saying you're one of the more, whether it's cynical or realistic, United fans around. So, do you see us in a title contention yet, or are you of the similar opinion that there's a lot more football to be played?
Yeah, you're right in terms of realistic and cynical. I guess those are probably 2 words that you could use with the way that I describe United at times. I'm on the same level as Brad with this. That game for me, the mentality in that game will tell me whether we're ready or not. If we go to that game and put 7 at the back, essentially, which is what we did at Leipzig, if we do that, then I think it's shown that we're not ready to win the big games. We're just happy to take a point, essentially. Whereas if we go and attack this Liverpool side, which, by the way, I know they're good and they're great going forward and stuff, but if you attack them, they do crumble. We saw it even against West Brom at times. They're a bit frail, really. So I think if you attack them, then you'll expose them. Mentality, that's all it is. And if we go into that big game like we did with the City one, we're happy to take a 0-0 draw. I think at the end of the day, both managers were kind of happy with that, which is fair enough because they're both good sides. But yeah, the most important thing for me is if we go out to win that game, then maybe we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if we go out to draw or do what we've done against Leipzig and just concede goals, then we could be in trouble. But I'm not getting ahead of myself. No way. And I know people are saying, wow, we're joint top. And that's fair enough. Liverpool been dropping points and stuff. But they've got Thiago, who's just come back into the side. One of the best players. Honestly, I know people play him down. He's one of the best players on the planet in midfield. He came in against Newcastle and looked fantastic within 5 minutes of playing. He's just so cultured and brilliant. So we've got a full strength squad. They haven't. And when they do get that squad back, then they'll run away with it. I think there's no way, City are kind of, they might even finish above us. I don't know, but they're a good side. And once they get, a fully fit squad after this COVID scare, then it's going to be tough. So I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that we are going to win this title, because you said 34 games, then I'll judge. Any earlier than that, and I genuinely don't think you can call it.
Fair enough. I'm very much of the opinion of you two as well. I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm very happy and I'm enjoying the ride at the minute at the top of the table. It's nice to be back where, in my opinion, we belong. But, I'm not getting carried away at all. But, Brad, I'll come back to you then. You said we need a couple of signings in January to really solidify our place as contenders. So who do you think we need to bring in?
Well, I think Henry kind of mentioned it earlier about United have to go on the attack against Liverpool. And if you remember in the first match last season at Old Trafford, early on in the season, it was 1-1, finished 1-1, and United went out on the attack in that first half, and then had to make 3 substitutions due to injury. So that could have been the first win in a long time against Liverpool. Under Solskjaer as well, it would have meant a lot, and who knows what that would have done to Liverpool's season? Who knows? Obviously, they then went on that incredible run and didn't lose till February, was it, against Watford? So, United have to go out on the attack. But the thing is, United didn't hold on against Liverpool last season, and that's a defensive issue. So this January window, it would be key for United to get some defenders in place, maybe a centre-back, because put it like this, if Lindelof needs surgery on his back, minor surgery, it would be a month to 2 months out. And with back injuries, you never know if that player will come back as well as he was playing before. And Bailly, everyone knows his track record. I think United's physical and health team need to do everything in their power to keep him fit. But the fact is, if he's then injured, you're then looking at Tuanzebe, who's got very little first team experience with Manchester United. Obviously, he played a full season with Aston Villa, but then he's had injury issues as well. So if one of those little niggly issues come up with Tuanzebe, then you're in deep trouble there, because then you're starting to look for a 4th or 5th centre-back to play. I mean, I don't even know who they'd go for in that position. So you've kind of got to be looking at maybe even someone on loan. I think United could have done with maybe doing the Chelsea thing and getting Thiago Silva on loan sort of thing from PSG on a free transfer, in the summer, and taking him up. But they already had Maguire, and those two players are very similar. So I think you've got to be looking for a pacey centre-back to join Maguire. And the right-back rumours, I'm not too sure about those, because I personally really rated Diogo Dalot. I really rated him as a right-back. I think he really showed what United fans wanted him to do in some games against PSG when he was given the opportunity to go forward. I mean, he was arguably, in that famous night in Paris, he was arguably one of the most influential players behind Rashford and Lukaku, who obviously won the penalty for the Rashford winner as well. I think that flies under the radar a little bit, that performance from Dalot, but I think a simple recall could be due. Give Wan-Bissaka a bit of competition and kind of see where that takes you.
Definitely. Now, just last question I wanted to ask the both of you. I'll come to you first, Henry. Given the fact that we are now joint top of the league, there's not that European pressure anymore with the Champions League. We're in the Europa League, so it doesn't really matter if we win it or not. So we can really focus on domestic competitions now. What is the minimum expectation for this team this season, given the position we currently find ourselves in?
That's all dependent on this window for me. That's all dependent on whether we get a couple of signings. I don't think you can expect Wan-Bissaka and Brandon Williams to rotate in the Premier League, because I know you've got Telles and Shaw. So Williams has essentially been pushed out of the picture as far as it goes at the moment. Tuanzebe would rather be played there than not play at all. So he's kind of almost second choice now. It's getting a couple of more players, and then the minimum is obviously top 4. If we don't get top 4, then I think Solskjaer's out. Simple as that. I'm not saying that we won't, because I think we're in a good position to do it at the moment. But I think having had 2 years, I think it is at the moment at United, you can't have 2 years at the club and be in a situation where you are where you started off, essentially. So, yeah, top 2 or 3 has to be. And then it'd be nice to win the Europa League, but to be honest, I'd just stick the kids out in that. I'd rather win. I genuinely rather win the FA Cup. Like, that to me is, we need to win something. It has to happen. So the City game has become more important than it probably ever would have been, because Solskjaer needs to win trophies. You can't keep losing in semi-finals, losing another semi-final, and the questions are asked yet again. As a Manchester United manager, you're expected to do everything. You're expected to win everything. Ferguson set that kind of precedent when he was at the club. So he's got to win something this year. It's simple as that. I remember Klopp, wasn't it his 3rd or 4th season at Liverpool? He was under serious pressure to win something, and then they won the Champions League that year. And if they didn't win something that year, questions asked about his job yet again, because he's brought in players for all this money and whatever. So got to win something and got to get top 3 or 4, because Champions League, as we know for these owners, is a massive cash flow and a massive opportunity to get some more dividends checks in their pocket. So they want that money and they need that money. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll come to you then, Brad. If we contextualise everything, the position we're in and the failings of last year, I think it's fair to call it the 3 semi-finals lost. What now constitutes as a good season for United?
Henry, hit the nail on the head there with silverware. Solskjaer has to get 1 under his belt. And interesting point made by Henry there. With Jurgen Klopp winning that Champions League, it then developed into winning a Premier League. This Manchester United side hasn't won anything since 2017 under Jose Mourinho, the Europa League. That was the last trophy that Manchester United won. So there's a lot of players here that are hungry for a trophy, and if they're not hungry, they shouldn't be at Manchester United. But the thing is, Man United need to be winning trophies, and the best way to do that is by starting off with a domestic cup competition with the Carabao Cup against Manchester City. You've got to get to this final, and then I think you could start placing your bets on Manchester United to beat either Tottenham or Brentford. I think that trophy is United's to lose at the minute, because of the fact that COVID has struck City hard, and they're very, very, very kind of relaxed in the squad with the chance of winning that trophy. They've already won it 4 or 5 times. They're not too fussed. United need a trophy to get underway, get the ball rolling. This mentality of winning a trophy needs to become a part of these players. It needs to be growing inside of them, thinking, "Whoa, we've not won a trophy in nearly 3 years, lads. Like, come on!" Like, they need to be egging each other on. And the players like De Gea will realize that. He's been in the club now for 10 years, nearly 8-9 years. And he's won Premier Leagues, FA Cups under Louis van Gaal, Europa Leagues. He's won quite a few, and he'll be desperate for one to get more medals under his belt. But I just think that's what Henry said about Klopp. I think you really need to get 1 trophy under your belt for them to start the ball rolling. And I think this season, this is quite an interesting point that I was thinking about to myself the other night. This could be, without calling United title contenders, this could be one of the best seasons, or best opportunities to win the Premier League as a Manchester United club, because of Chelsea needing time to gel, Man City not being at the races, Liverpool with all their injuries, Arsenal are never title contenders, Tottenham never really title contenders, Jose Mourinho losing the dressing room. It's a perfect opportunity for Manchester United to capitalise. Their players love playing with each other. They love playing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and it's time to capitalise on that and the others' mistakes. There is a gap this season. This is the season where Leicester City would win the league in 2015-16 when all the players and teams weren't at it. They won the league. Manchester United now need to do that. It's their best chance.
Definitely. Well, let's hope they do. And on that note, we'll call it a day. So, Brad, thanks for coming on. It's been brilliant to talk to you. And for anyone who hasn't already, be sure to check out Brad on Twitter for your behind-the-scenes action at Old Trafford at the minute. It's not easy to come by. So, again, thanks for coming on.
Excellent stuff. Thank you for having me.
No worries, no worries. Henry, thank you again for joining me. First episode of 2021. Corrected myself now. So, yeah, thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem.
And thank you to all of you watching. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like and subscribe. We've got lots more content coming up for you. And on that note, we'll see you next time.
Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.